Next, we'll take a look at another approach to capturing traffic using more detailed network monitors. In this case, we're going to look at Microsoft's Network Monitor. It's a free tool from Microsoft. Some of the advantages that this would have over Fiddler as a tool: it's a general network tracing tool for many protocols. So whereas Fiddler focuses on HTTP, Microsoft Network Monitor watches all sorts of different protocols and lots of different layers of the network stack as well. So if you need to do tracing for conversations and protocols other than HTTP, that might be a great reason to use the Microsoft Network Monitor. This hooks into your network adapters, so it's actually capturing as traffic is going through your either Ethernet card or wireless, so you don't need to set up any proxies. So it's very easy to configure because you're just going to start it up and it's going to start watching what's going on with your network adapter. You can see network frames at multiple levels, so if you need to understand what's happening at the IP level, for instance, you can actually drill down into the IP and look at what the packets look like at that level of the network stack. You can also see the number of packets required. This is sometimes useful when you want to see how many actual packets go back and forth for a given page. I've moved a little bit away from this because Fiddler does show me the size of files. I have some general indication about how much of a burden that puts on a client. I don't necessarily care specifically the number of packets. Sometimes if you work in really high latency environments, it might be interesting to know exactly how many specific packets are going back and forth, and that's an advantage of Network Monitor. You can see other computers' traffic, so depending on how your network is set up, you can see other traffic on your network. So if that were necessary for some reason, that would be a good reason to use Network Monitor. You can see IP addresses very simply. There are ways to do this in Fiddler. They're just a little more buried. Some of the disadvantages over Fiddler: it hooks into your network adapters. So unfortunately, you can't use it locally. I found no way to get Network Monitor to be tracing between a web browser and the web server when they're both on my development machine. Again, seeing network frames at multiple levels is useful, but it's also more complicated. So when I show you the interface, you'll see often you don't care what's happening at the IP layer or the TCP layer. So all of that extra information, if you're not going to use it, just makes it more complicated. You can't modify the traffic, which again is a big advantage of Fiddler. You can't view SSL traffic, so they don't have it set up to do the man-in-the-middle sort of approach that Fiddler uses, so when SSL traffic is being transmitted, you can't see it. You also need to reassemble packets on your own, so when you looked at Fiddler, one of the big advantages was you saw the complete request and the complete response, regardless of how many packets were required at the network layer to send those back and forth. So it's very easy for you to see this is everything that got sent, here's everything that came back. When you look at Network Monitor, you'll see we need to reassemble essentially the full request and response by looking across multiple packets. Now let's see how to use Microsoft's Network Monitor to capture traffic between the web browser and web server. So in this case, I've got my browser started already. We will just open up Network Monitor. We will ask to do a new capture, and then we will start the capture. Then we'll go back and we'll hit the Pluralsight homepage. We'll go back to Network Monitor, and again we'll stop the capture. But you can see there's an awful lot of stuff going on already in the frame summary. As you look through, if you ever wonder why your computers are slow, look at all the requests that are going back and forth constantly. So the first thing we would want to do is type HTTP. I can apply a filter, so all I'm going to see is the actual web traffic. So one of the things we'll see, here's my original request to go out to Pluralsight. You can see it shows me all of the different layers. So I can open the HTTP layer, and it does have a decent view where it breaks down what the cookie is, the encoding, all the other headers that were sent. As I start to look for responses, you'll see I start getting some of these files back, and if some of them are large, they're going to actually span across number of responses. So we'll see the minified file starts here, and we'll see some of the various responses coming in. So you kind of have to put back together the complete response from all of the different packets that came back and forth. So again, it can be useful, and there's times where you want to use Network Monitor, but if you're just trying to focus on HTTP, you can see where this level of complexity is not something that's going to be an advantage for me. So again, trade-offs with Fiddler and Network Monitor, but if you need the certain cases, this is another free tracing tool that you can use if it's appropriate for your situation.